Several years ago, I embarked on an adventurous journey with my friends, delving into the mysteries of old, enigmatic, and allegedly haunted locales. One notable destination was the Hilltop Covenant Presbyterian Church, which harbored the family crypt of Juliana Leclair, who was laid to rest there in 1852. This place was shrouded in eerie tales and legends, especially about unexplained ghostly screams that seemed to emanate from within its walls. The mystery deepened when, in 1867, the crypt was opened for another burial, and Juliana's remains were discovered in a disturbing position near the door, as if she had spent her final moments in a desperate attempt to escape her tomb. In a twist of events, my friends, seeking a thrill, decided to play a prank on me. They closed the massive stone door of Juliana's crypt, leaving me trapped inside with a plan to return for me the next morning. Despite my strenuous efforts, the door remained immovable, a barrier that had initially required the strength of 4 people to set in place. As darkness enveloped me in that confined space, I felt an overwhelming, inexplicable sense of dread and claustrophobia. It was as if the very shadows were alive, attempting to engulf me, and a strange, oppressive force made it difficult to breathe, adding to my growing sense of panic. Hours ticked by in the pitch black crypt, each minute stretching longer than the last. Initially, I dismissed the faint scratching sounds I heard as figments of my overactive imagination. However, as time passed, these sounds grew louder and more frantic, escalating into an unbearable cacophony that seemed to reverberate off the crypt's ancient walls. Seeking refuge, I cowered in the farthest corner from the door, my hands pressed tightly over my ears, but it was futile. Nothing could drown out the terrifying symphony of scratches and scrapes. This auditory torment seemed to last only minutes, but in my heightened state of fear it felt like a never-ending nightmare. Suddenly, the crypt was pierced by a soul-chilling scream, filled with raw pain and terror. The scratching ceased abruptly, replaced by the soft, mournful sobs of a girl. It was Juliana, her spirit still lingering in that sorrowful place. As I sat there in the darkness, her grief resonated deeply within me, stirring a profound empathy that overshadowed my own fear. Moved by her suffering, I found myself speaking aloud, offering apologies for the horrors she had endured, even though she might not have been aware of my presence. A part of me longed to reach out into the darkness, to offer some form of comfort, but I was paralyzed by the fear of actually encountering her spectral form. The night wore on, marked by Juliana's intermittent weeping and the occasional sound of my own fingers helplessly drumming against the stone door. Eventually, exhaustion overcame me, and I slipped into an uneasy sleep, a small mercy in the midst of such a harrowing ordeal. I awoke with a start to the loud thud of the crypt door falling open, a sliver of dawn's early light filtering through the window, signaling the approach of morning. Groggily, I emerged from the crypt, my legs unsteady as I made my way towards a small, nearby chapel. The chapel, possibly a remnant of a segregated past, offered me a momentary refuge as I leaned against its door, anxiously awaiting the arrival of my friends. When they finally appeared, their focus was immediately drawn to the fallen crypt door. To our collective horror, the inner side of the door was marred with bloody streaks and scratch marks, some faint, others deep, as if Juliana's spirit had struggled against her eternal prison. My friends' gaze shifted from the door to me, their faces a mix of shock and concern as they examined my hands, seemingly searching for signs of my involvement in the crypt's defacement. Fueled by anger and a sense of betrayal, I recounted to them every harrowing detail of my night spent in Juliana's crypt. I wanted them to fully grasp the extent of the terror and anguish I had experienced, trapped in that haunting space. As we drove back home, A tense silence hung in the air until one of my friends hesitantly spoke up, pointing out something alarming about my appearance. In the days following this unsettling incident, I learned more about the crypt's troubled history, despite numerous efforts over the years to securely seal it, including the use of heavy locks and chains that later required machinery to remove. The crypt's door was repeatedly found broken open, lying on the ground. These attempts spanned decades, the most recent being in the 1980s. It seemed as if some unseen persistent force was determined to prevent the past mistakes from being repeated. While I was grateful for this intervention, the memory of that night continued to haunt me, sending chills down my spine at the mere thought. On reaching home, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. To my shock, my face was covered in dried blood, eerily similar to the stains on the crypt door. Dark red lines ran down my cheeks, as if someone had caressed my face with wounded fingers while I slept. It was as though Juliana, longing for human contact after over a century of solitude, had reached out to me in those fleeting moments of unconsciousness.